morning, Rev Rhona. Hi, Wendy. It is so lovely to see everybody here this morning. My name is now Rev Rhona Segarra, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all to Unity of New Westminster Spiritual Community. This community is a community of love and support and fellowship and place where we are all safe and accepted. We're grateful that we are able to gather here on Kakite, unceded territory of the Kakite people, and we honor them and all the people of First Nations in our country. Unity is a spiritual movement that teaches principles for full and abundant living. We draw on the teachings of Jesus as our primary way shower, and we honor the wisdom traditions in faith traditions all over the world. We believe that it is every person's right to choose their own spiritual path. All are welcome here. All are celebrated here. Let us open our service today in a time of prayer. We are indeed grateful that we can come together in this beautiful space, coming together as one, to laugh together, to sing, to learn, to explore, and to discover. We know that there is only one power with many names, many understandings, and many ways of serving and seeking. And yet we are bound together as one humanity in this power of love that attracts, unites, and pulls us together in harmony. We know there is one power, and that power expresses at the point of us. We have power. And it is from that power that we send a blessing of love, of peace, of fellowship to every being on this planet, regardless of race, of creed, of country, of denomination, of ability, of age, of gender expression, of who we choose to love. We recognize that all those differences form a human tapestry, and we acknowledge that that tapestry is good. And we are all connected as one. We send a blessing of peace to all who are troubled, knowing that our blessing has power. And it is from this knowledge and in this intention that we give thanks and say Amen. Today's daily word is praying for others. With faith, I see the truth in any situation. When I'm asked to pray for others, I look beyond the story of their lives. Instead, I discern the truth beneath appearances to to find the sacred essence of each situation. Knowing that each of us is a living expression of God, I affirm that divine qualities are active in others. Healing life, harmonizing love, prospering wisdom, and so much more. I see the divine nature of every person and know they have access to all the attributes of God. Seeing this deeper truth allows me to stand firm in faith as I pray for others, no matter how sad or discouraged they may feel. I pray knowing their innate strength, power, and wisdom. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John chapter 8, verse 32. Today we're having an interesting day. This is one of those days where there's a part of me that's a little nervous, and there's a part of me that's really excited. And that's because after Art's solo, I will receive all of the questions that you have written on your little index card that will be in your welcome package. And then I'm just going to draw them randomly and attempt to answer them intelligently. In other ministries, they call this type of service "Stump the Minister." And I thought that was just a little too cruel, so I'm calling it "I've Always Wondered." So what I'd like you to do, if you would, is during the meditation time and during Art's solo, just if something has always concerned you or you've always wondered about how Unity sees things, here's your opportunity to ask the question. And as I said, I will attempt to answer it intelligently and shed some light on Unity's view of things. So it's actually a really fun experience to go through. So, yeah. In the meantime, let us close our eyes if we're comfortable, and we're going to sing the Lord's Prayer. Now, for some people, the Lord's Prayer is sung with a "Which art in heaven." Others, it's "Who art in heaven." In some cases, people sing "Leave us not in temptation," and others sing "Lead us not into temptation." Whatever you are comfortable with, whatever makes your heart sing, those are the words I invite you to sing as we just create this quiet, sacred space.
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy
And allow your body to relax. Allow yourself to rest and give yourself permission to just be still. With every successive breath, feel yourself becoming heavier, and allow your chair to support you. Until your body is completely at rest. And now, bring your attention to your thoughts. And allow yourself to sink beneath them. They'll do what they want to do and what they are intended to do, which is think. And rather than resist those thoughts, sink beneath them and allow your attention to come to that heart space within you. Imagine yourself at a time when you were most delighted, a time where you were in awe of something beautiful, where you were filled with love. Feel that feeling. Picture that moment. And allow yourself to feel that love, that expansiveness, that appreciation. That peace that came from knowing that in that moment all was right with your world. That is the place of peace. That is that God place within you, where your highest self is free and accessible. And that peace is always just a breath away. At times when the world may be too busy, perhaps too confusing or overwhelming, know that restoration is within your grasp. Within your power. And as we move into a time of silence, hold that vision, that love, that joy, that excitement. And that way, when you need to, you'll know what to reach for. Peace is within me.
To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the day will not grow, to right the unreachable wrong, to love your and taste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to raise the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, still strove with his last ounce of courage to fight the unbeatable foe, to reach the unreachable star.
So I'm going to ask Sharon or one of the ushers to collect your cards if you have them ready. And if you don't, take a few moments now to write them. This should be so much fun. For you.
If you finish, just raise your hand.
Right here. I do have some from last year, but I'd like to have some current ones. And if you have a question and you want to yell it out in the meantime while Sharon's collecting, that's fine too.
Just raise your hand if you're ready.
All right. Sharon, you better have written something nice and gentle for me there. Okay, while other Sharon is doing that, let's see. This one was a question from last year. What accommodations for belonging? How are people who are disabled involved and help out? Like signing, plain language. Our community is working to make accommodations for belonging, and yet we have a long way to go in terms of being accessible to people who have either disabilities or special needs. And it is something that I am very fortunate to have Barb and Aaron, who have done lots of work in the field of accessibility, inclusivity, for people who are labeled as disabled or other-abled, or what was the brilliant word that you used in your book? It wasn't disabled, but it was other-abled, essentially, which is true, right? We label people with this word disabled, and yet diversibility, that was the word, yeah. And thank you. I don't know who coined that phrase, but it's awesome. But the idea of labeling people in any case, for anything, is just so unfortunate. It's a human trait that we have, but it's unfortunate because what we want to get to is people, and then a descriptor of some kind, and hopefully not a descriptor that makes it something negative. And one of the things that we need to work on as a community, and with Aaron and Barb's help particularly, is to become more inclusive and more welcoming, and not just to say it, but to actually act it. So things like having a better wheelchair access, potentially having someone who can sign for us would be fabulous. To be able to have access to the internet so people who can't get here on a Sunday is also part of what we're trying to do to become more accessible for everybody. And plain language, that is something that I try to work on, because it's so easy to stand up here on a Sunday and be all ethereal, and sometimes the concepts that we are trying to share are pretty darn heady, and your mind can turn into a bit of a pretzel with it. And so one of my personal goals is to try to speak in language that is secular and plain, and hopefully we will continue on that journey of making our community not just accommodating, but truly inclusive. So, thank you for the question. I'll take any that you have there for now. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Shake it up, shake it up.
Might as well just take the basket, right? Okay. There's a lot in here. I don't know if we'll get them all done today. If I prayed for something to happen and keep a positive attitude, is it going to happen? And if it doesn't, why not? Okay, so I'm done for the day. I put my recorder on, yeah. I think Walt's recording it anyway, so. Right. At Unity, we don't believe that we're praying for anything. When I grew up, we would pray to God, and we would pray for something, as if me asking God, who was always a guy and was always up there, was somehow going to make a difference in what God had chosen to have happen in the future. Well, at Unity, we don't believe in praying for anything. What we pray for, if we're going to say praying for, is to be reminded that we want to put ourselves in a place of seeing things rightly. And that means affirming that we are powerful beings, one with all of the power that is out there. And that what we want to remember is to look for the truth of a situation, which sometimes has nothing to do with the appearance of a situation. So we know that an appearance might be that we've lost a job, or it might be that we're looking for a new new house. But the truth is that it's not really the house that we're looking for. It's the value behind that house that we're really searching for. We're searching for security and comfort and a place that we can feel is ours to express within. When we're looking for a job, we're not really looking for a job as much as we're looking for the security of knowing that we're going to be able to provide for our family and that we're going to be taken care of. And so one of the goals of prayer in unity is to see the situation rightly by not praying for a specific outcome, but instead by holding to the truth, which is that security, money, all those things that we see on the outer are you looking at me for something, sir? I see a hand going like this. Well,
Yeah, I have just a word that I wanted to share.
yes.
Create a positive creative process.
Positive creative process. Yes, well, we are positive, we are creative beings. And so what we want to be doing in prayer is to not be thinking of a specific outcome, like I want a new job, or I want a new house, or I want this illness to be healed. But to go deeper into the creative process that says, I am a powerful being and I am whole. And all of these things on the outer are simply outer things that can change. Today I could have a job, tomorrow it could be gone, the next day it could be back. That means that I could be sad today, happy tomorrow, and sad the next day. But what is the truth of who we are is that we are whole beings with power already. And so to be in that place of non-despair, knowing that the truth of us is not the job, it is not the house, it is not the relationship, it is not the illness. Those are all human attributes, and sure, that's part of who we are. But prayer is to remind ourselves of our divinity, of our power, of the truth of who we are, which is eternal, beautiful, creative beings. And so the question of, if it doesn't happen, why not? It doesn't mean that you didn't think about it hard enough, or it doesn't mean that God is mad at you, or that you've done something wrong, or any of those embedded theologies and belief systems that we've had since we were children. The truth is, life happens. And life happens with all the good stuff and the not so good stuff, with sickness and in health, just like they say in those wedding ceremonies. You know, sickness, health.
Rich or poor.
Thank you, richer or poorer. Blah, blah. Pardon?
Very good answer. All.
Yes. Thank you. Life happens. And what we want to remember is who we are in the midst of it. That is what prayer does for us. Right. Is there a way to learn to use internet or blogs? Do we support learning about technology? There's a lot here. I like how we always make everyone feel good about themselves. Thank you. I like that too. Does Unity of Canada have a plan to support truth and reconciliation for Indigenous people? Oh, I see. And then, is there a way to learn to use internet or blogs? So there's a few questions on here. First, thank you. I appreciate the feedback about wanting people to feel good about themselves. Does Unity have a plan to support truth and reconciliation for Indigenous people? At the moment, I would have to say that the answer to that is, I don't know, but I don't think so. I don't think that the organization is planning to do anything on a national scale with that in mind, but I can find out more, and I can certainly pass the question along. And then, is there a way to learn to use internet or blogs? Do we support learning about technology? I'm not sure if this question is to do with maybe having a class for our own community to learn about technology. If that is something that is a need or an interest, I am all for it, because I know that there are some people here, actually he's not here today, Jerry, who is brilliant at helping people with technology and stuff. So if you wrote that question and that is what you were thinking about, please come and see me afterwards, and we can chat about what might be a need that, if one person has the words on here, quite often it means that there's 10 people who are actually thinking it or would value it. So please see me after. And if it's to do with whether or not we can do more as a community to do with technology and blogs and so on, the answer is absolutely yes. Blogging is something that I haven't done, and it's something that's on my radar to do. And I have a commitment that I will, now I'm saying it, so I have to do it, right? So every day, how many of us read this? The Daily Word. I think it would be super fun if every day that gets put onto our website or onto our Facebook page. And so what I was thinking of doing is just recording like a week at a time and then posting it and scheduling that.
I was thinking that sometimes what you can do is you can have a challenge.
A challenge?
Yeah, a challenge that if people read like every day, they're in for some kind of a gift at the end, which maybe is 10% off a course, or I don't know. I'm just saying, yeah.
Great idea, Wendy. Let's chat after. Let's chat after. I love the idea. Thank you. Thank you. So yes, we've got more work to be done on that. Blogs and anything to do with social media, we're baby stepping it, which is good. It's better than not stepping at all. Many people believe that Jesus married. Do you have a comment on this? Do I believe that Jesus married? There's no way to know. There's no way to know. I know that in those days it was pretty accepted for people to marry, and to marry quite young. And so it wouldn't surprise me if Jesus was married, because the culture would have expected that Jesus be married. But I don't know for sure. And while we're on the subject, I just want to share some support for those in the Anglican Communion who may be feeling a little uncomfortable at the moment, because a couple of days ago, the Anglican Church of Canada did not vote to change its wording with regard to marriage. So the wording for the canon of the Anglican Church of Canada is marriage is between a man and a woman. And 3 years ago, they voted, and it's like a two-step vote, 3 years apart, if you can imagine. They voted to change that so that it would be able for people who are same-sex marriages. That would then be able to be done in the Anglican Church and be upheld in the canon. And a couple of days ago was their second of the two votes. and it did not pass. And so for many people in the Anglican Church, it's a very sad day, a very sad vote. And I just want to honor that for both the people who voted for and the people who voted against that motion. It is a difficult choice for people to make when they're making something that is for an entire movement. The good news is what they've said is that each diocese, so Vancouver might be its own diocese, for example, will be able to make their own choices. And yet I do find it something that I know for people who are staunch Anglicans, it would have been wonderful to have the Anglican Church of Canada stand for what they believed in. Anyway, I do know that Jesus was likely to be expected to be married, and I don't know if he was. I know he hung out with all kinds of people, and if I were to say his number one commitment that we can see in any of his teachings, it's his commitment to oneness with what he referred to as Abba, Father, as Father, which is that creative one, that love, that highest consciousness. There you go. Next question. Were there others that preceded Charles and Myrtle Fillmore in the New Thought movement? So Charles and Myrtle Fillmore were the co-founders of this unity movement, and that happened in the 1890s. And prior to the 1890s, there was a movement of seekers who were looking for ways to re-understand Christianity, who were looking for the spiritual truths that were in Christianity and other religions. And people like Mary Baker Eddy, E.B. Weeks, which is actually how Unity got started, was because Myrtle Fillmore attended a lecture at which E.B. Weeks was speaking, and what she heard resonated so strongly with her that she realized that she needed to shift her thinking. And so the answer is, yes, there were others that preceded Charles and Myrtle in the New Thought movement. Where I think Charles and Myrtle Fillmore perhaps had a unique take on New Thought is with their power of prayer as being the number one foundational part of unity. And two, the idea of taking the Bible and finding deeper metaphorical and metaphysical meanings in the Bible, where some of the New Thought movements likely didn't, basically tossed the Bible away and looked for Eastern religions and other more secular approaches. So New Thought Christianity is how I would define unity, actually. We're going to go for another 5-10 minutes here. What is holiness? What a beautiful question. What is holiness?
In 3 easy words.
Holiness to me is an awareness that where you are is always holy. If we say that it's true that there is no spot that God is not, which is Rhona's version of God is. God is invisible, visible, particle, wave. There is no place that God is not. And if we assume that that means that everything is sacred, that everything is purposeful, that there is intelligence and order in all, then that does not stop at our skin, folks. That means that where we are is also holy. That means that every word we speak, we want to be speaking from that place of acknowledgement of our perfection. And perfection and holiness and sacred duty, and I use that word duty intentionally, is because we have power, and our job is to manage our power. And holiness, I think, is when we are so in alignment with that knowledge that everything we do, everything we speak, every thought we have, every action we take is aligned with our North Star, which is love or peace, or whatever you choose your North Star to be. Holiness is each of us, right where we are, all the time. One more. Why do I often think of lack instead of abundance? We should all put up our hands for that one. But it's a really great question, isn't it? Why is it that if we know that power is ours, and we know that we have the power to create our experiences with how we choose to see the world, why is it that we always go to the negative? The answer is because we're human. And it is a human trait and a human behavior to do this. We always look for the negative. That is why appreciative inquiry is such a powerful idea, this idea of, instead of looking for what's not working, let's take a look at what is working and let's celebrate that. And yet, we have this idea of, these are the things that are right, these are the things that are right, and here's this one thing that's really wrong, and I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to work that. And it's like, you've seen me do that with the Kleenexes, with explaining what performance reviews look like, right? You do this right, you do this right, you do this right. Oh, and let's just work on this thing that you don't do right. And we have this tendency, and I'm not sure why, but I think it's part of our evolution to challenge ourselves when we find ourselves in this place. And challenge ourselves to shift it, to turn the other cheek, and to go, you know what, I am thinking of what's wrong. I am thinking of what I don't have enough of. But I can choose to know that I'm thinking that way, and I can focus on all the things that are right. And when we do that, there's so much power in it. Because all of a sudden, the lack gets put into perspective with all of this wonder that we have that is so fabulous. And I think part of it also comes from a place of what I think of as continuous improvement. Like, we always want to get a little better. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think our nature is expansion, and expansion means that we want to do things better and we want to grow. So there's a part of it that's almost by definition built into us to try and improve. And that means looking to find out what's wrong. But it's an excellent question. And the answer is practice thinking of abundance. Philippians 4, think on the things that are lovely, what is true, what is beautiful. Philippians 4:8. what is true, what is lovely, what is beautiful, anything that is worthy of praise. Think on these things. Makes your life so much happier. So much happier. I will keep these other questions and maybe answer one a week or one every couple of weeks, because that would be really fun. Wendy.
I was thinking that would be a great way to start your blog.
Blog. And I'm sorry?
Answering one of those.
Oh, that is a good idea, answering one a week. Well, thanks, Wendy. Thank you, that is a great idea. Barb, you had a question?
How would you, if you're not into blogging, how would you get in?
Where do you get that information?
How would you be able to understand and if you don't blog, how would, is what you said, get the information?
Yeah, I think the idea of blogging actually is the right way to get the information. If I put the answer, let's say I did a question a week and answered it here in this community, then that would be good too. And maybe that would be a good place for me to formulate my thoughts, because with you, I'm actually working out what I want to say. But then it's a limited group of people and a limited audience, and I think some of these questions are very universal. And so if I were to actually take those and make them available on a blog, which is available to anybody as long as they're searching. Say someone is searching for the question, why am I focusing on lack? It would show up as a response on a blog, but it wouldn't show up if I'm just speaking here. So it is a better idea to blog than to Facebook or any of the others. And now we are actually working some answers, which is super cool. Well, I know you have a question.
What is a blog?
What is a blog? Thank you. This thing has gone off in such a fun direction for me. A blog is a short essay, normally 300 to 400 words, that responds to a question or is an idea, or it's basically an internet post. And for people who might be searching, so say I wanted to search for the question, why am I focusing on lack? If I were to Google that and someone happened to write an article about that very subject, it is possible that that article would come up and respond. So that's the power of a blog. It's basically like editorials, short editorials.
I just have one more thing. There's something also, and not to confuse anyone, called a vlog, V-L-O-G. And what that is a video blog. So for somebody that might be more auditory, well, or that's just an idea as well. And it would be all on the website, right?
Very cool idea. You guys are creating all kinds of work. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Let us move to singing. This is what our goal is, right? A world awakening.
Please rise. No more